being a professor, I'm going to go to the basics. Why do we play games? Some of these aspects have been covered, but go to some of the fundamentals in terms of certain human, kind of tendencies that make us connected and immersed to games. The first thing is immersion, theme, and the story, and the characters. I think that's very important for a game to work. Other thing that drives us in a game is that we actually feel we have a control, we have a sense of achievement, and as reward, we also feel, at least while we play the game, that we can overcome the challenges and obstacles that we face in our life. It also helps us to hone dexterity of skills. We also develop tactics, strategies, and anticipation. Games actually help us do that. It's high adrenaline and intensity of engagement that actually makes the game fun. And it more or less is driven from what we call, varied human imagination and stories that we base on games. We say the game industry is very young. I have slightly different perspective here. Gaming happened much before the technology came in that we use in video games. And board games have been around for many centuries, okay? So here at the institute, we actually start with board games. We believe that that's really the stepping stone to move into what we call the video games. Interesting thing is board games actually process the entire experience in your mind. What the technology in video game does is helps you externalize and live the experience. That's a major shift with this technology has happened. But all the same, what it does is it basically gives us an understanding of how games are played. How do we use chance, strategy, tactics, collaboration, and validity as a determinants of design as a game. Also, it's all about familiarity and application of the game mechanics and visualizing the games. It's important to have a focus on the player imagination because board games actually want you to imagine the story that you are going to be a part of. It also helps you to understand the intensity and engagement your board game can create in terms of what one can role play, which also happens in video games. You play roles, right? It also helps you to understand, building blocks that would finally lead up to what one would venture into in the form of video games. More importantly, developing visual imagination and skills are something which are very important in designing board games. We believe that games imitate life and human imagination. And I think it was yeah. So, talking about mundane to game experience. And it's important, but of course, we do it slightly differently from the way you present it. But it's very important. It starts with saying that, okay, you came into the class today. Let's make the game of the what you experience from home to here. And that's where the excitement starts. How do you think about the game? Is it possible to convert the most mundane and normal experiences that we have? And how do you make it as a challenge in a game situation? And this is what is the first kind of an interesting challenge. It gets them to understand the psychology that goes into making a game. And it's like, again, that's one of the examples that we do. And which essentially means that how games actually have to be imagined in terms of balancing, obstacles, goals, chance, tactics, and strategies. Other thing, the interesting kind of idea that shown to school is like they all come from schools and they've gone through major challenge of admissions. Can we convert the entire process of how they go about selecting higher education into a game? So these are all real life challenges. Can they be made into a game? And how do they make sense to people in terms of its presence? So I'll just briefly talk about some games. So introducing the game of thought process, the concept of as concept and thought process is something very important that we believe has to be instilled in students. That you have to be continue to be a thinking designer to make sure that AI doesn't beat you. From Monday to game experience, which is what basically then you have talked about this. Sorry, that slide doesn't change. Okay. So what we like focus on is how do we instill originality and authenticity. Because very often we try and kind of make something which is similar. And there are more and more of similar games which continue to emerge. What is important in the game is it's possible for you to think of something which is different from what exists. That means how do you differentiate yourself in terms of the story, in terms of theme, in terms of game experience. And that essentially has to emerge from how do you think about, what is your idea. It's like writing a book. Book will only sell if it has something which is captivating in terms of story, characters, plot, etc. We've actually focused quite a bit to achieve this kind of originality and thought process on research. That you have to understand that research is the one which actually gives you the edge of being able to understand a particular theme or a situation or a location. So it could be geography, period, culture, characters, elements. So how do they come about? It's not just that it's widely imagined something. It has to be located in something. It gives it a sense of authenticity. You can see some of this, original characters and students have done. Other thing is how to actually define rules, game dynamics, treatments, and the total idea of the game as a holistic common experience. I just shared with you a couple of examples of projects. You can actually also have a look at some of the games outside. So this was, I think it's again similar to Happy. It's a board game, by the way, it's not a video game yet. But this is the first assignment that they do in terms of making, by imagining a story which starts with something as simple as the hacking which happens now. Is it possible for you to make it into a game experience? So it basically assumes that every player takes upon a role of one of the hats. And hackers are known in terms of good, bad, ugly, and very ugly. So that's how it is, right? The white and the black hat. That's a play the role, and the game is outside. You can always check it out. There are also some other games, by the way, you can see. What we look at is the criticality of the design process. I, being a designer, I continue to apply the way I design anything, including the game. That's what we get across to students. The theme and the plot of the game is something which is very, very critical. And then within that, how do you develop a story for people to navigate through the game? What is the kind of game dynamics that we want to imagine for a really engaging experience? What kind of characters, elements, and environment that we are talking about? And importantly, how authentic is the game experience? So I'm just going to share 3 projects which are more about how do we induce this whole sense of thinking originally. So this is about 4.5 day workshop that was done in terms of what you actually speculate based on certain themes. The theme was to design a restaurant of the future, right? And we imagine that the world actually has gone through a major, ecological challenge. The world has changed, and in that situation, what is the idea of having a restaurant? So that is this procedure which I want to share with you. The sustainable transformation is Delhi in 2049. Other is transitioning into future, which is aliens land up on Earth, and there is this fusion of the food that aliens have and the humans have. and that's the restaurant. Third one is a restaurant which is under sea because the climate change has made sure the water levels have risen so much. The place where we can stay and live is underwater. So this is one of the first concepts in terms of how they are speculating possibilities in terms of what would really 2049 be in terms of imagining a restaurant. What all will change? So how do you look at urban life? How do you look at nature? How do you look at sustainability? How do you look at renewable energy? What kind of food or dishes that you can have? What kind of community that you are looking at? How do people? What will be the role of technology? So that is how this game ideas can emerge. This is basically to initiate and inculcate the process of original thinking. And again, all these are done through extensive research. All these are based on the projection that we see in terms of high quality research from people who are experts. So these are some of these kind of first project, which is about all working nexus. It was supposed to be granted as well. And again, as I said, it's basically age-based in 2049 in Delhi. So you can also see the entire process that the students went through, the kind of visual references that they created, and eventually they also worked out a menu in terms of what kind of dishes will be served based on the kind of food that may be available. These are some of the imaginations and sort of environments. All these actually are done in the video form as well. So these are skills that I have captured. And the other concept is about the future where the aliens have landed up on the Earth. When NASA actually went, it's not 1977, and 2000, this is where it is. So 2030, some aliens land up and they seek refuge on Earth, and then they come together in partnership with humans to set up a restaurant. So it's located in Chandni Chowk, interestingly, and what Chandni Chowk is likely to be. So this is how they start working in terms of environment, characters, kind of different elements, which would be used for, storing, carrying food, serving food, etc. These are typically the characters that have been imagined by the students that would align with the theme. Then the third, which is the final concept, is called Mavi, and this is again about underwater dining experience. And it again is based on the same principle because each one of these are actually looking at sustainability and ecological challenge as part of the core kind of concerns. So they are looking at sustainable sourcing, innovative farming, renewable energy, environmental stewardship. So you can get a sense of how it will visualize in terms of the spaces. Okay, these are some of the other elements that would actually be part of that environment that we imagine for the restaurant. So obviously there are some ideas about how the energy will be produced, how people will travel, where would they, what could be the kind of interior decor, the elements which are there. Are there going to be some live features that one could actually have straight from the aquariums? There are kind of dishes that are imagined in terms of what possibly you like to get in terms of food. So this is how students actually are, put into this frame of being able to think about something which is original, which is based on deep research, and it actually is in all respects very authentic in terms of a game situation if the story has to be played. This is of course was done last year. It's about 4.5 days. This is our entire project was carried out from research to implementation. And at the moment we are working on a much ambitious project. We have not shared with you. And in the initial stages of what those games could be. And they are again themes, many of them are Indian in terms of locations. So these are some of the elements that are part and parcel of that environment. So that's basically what I thought I'll share with you in terms of the kind of assignments, the learning process, the thought process that goes in here for students who are basically wanting to get into the game industry. I also must tell you that this is just a bit of the creative work. There's a huge amount of emphasis which I have not shared with you in terms of knowledge, familiarity, hands-on competency on digital tools which are very important. Technology, understanding of technology, software, which goes into creating techniques and larger scenario video games that they study understand of history to where it's heading. And they are actually an integral part of the overall topic. Thank you. Any questions?
People from any background could look at understand this process and get onto it. Because I think a lot of people are learning gaming on their own. This is what I understand. The game developers say that they can learn a lot of things on their own. Do you think a lot of such kind of the process of being more innovative, being can they do it on their own?
They can, but I think what differentiates the quality of content, idea, and the story, if it's thought through from a deep research and understanding, it actually works qualitatively. I think that's what it brings on table. That it's important to make sure that you invest in that game, that the space of design process actually starts with exploration. Exploration is based on primary research, secondary research, experts. Then you move on to what is that history out of the research, how do you make sense out of it? Then how do you see it as a game idea at the end of it? What is the kind of treatment or visualization that you put for communicating that game experience? And eventually how do you realize? Ultimately, whether you're designing a game, designing something else, the process remains the same. And whenever we look at any successes, if they are rooted in a process which actually has to be iterated. I think all of you who are in game development know that you can't get anything right at the first shot. Design also believes that every time you want to go on implicitly, don't have it, try, take it, come back, and make sure the feedback which you get is again integrated, help with each position and can actually launch your product.
Insight from the developers, because many of you are self-taught, you've done a lot of work on your own. You are amazed at how much you can do and where you plan to head with what you've learned so far. It would really create a great dialogue between the way we have approached education, game design versus how you have thought of game. So is there a place where we will meet? Is there a point where we will meet? Or do you think we'll just go parallelly on our own? And then at some point game designers will be found useful and engaged, and there'll be a whole different field or function. And the game developers will continue on their own. At some point in this country, we need to get this economy to work together. And how do we do that? Because we don't intend to teach game development in our course. I think there are many people who are doing a great job of it. And I do believe that has been because of the kind of efforts you have undertaken. And I think it's mainly individual. It's not even through a system. So, what is the future? How do we go together forward and really energize this industry? We need to do it together. There are not too many colleges teaching game design the way we think. And maybe we are not completely also, we have not explored to the hill where we think it is the perfect way. We are also learning. That's why we keep on wanting to meet the game developers to see what is it that we can come together, how can we do things. That's why I would say that, yeah, the future is together, okay, collaborative. It's not about who is better at it. And that is why please continue to come. Let's work together, let's organize events, let's organize game jam, whatever it is. Right? But I thought if somebody wants to talk a little bit about it, your point of view, it will be great.
My experience, I work with many sectors. This is a recent one that I'm engaged with. And whenever we have been able to achieve any success, it has always been through the fact that academia and industry we talk very close and work together on issues. One is understand each other. I'm sure anybody who would like to be in the real life game development, you have a very different view of what sorts. Sure enough, we have a different imagination in terms of where the sector should be. And both are valid because there are different perspectives. Eventually, it's only when we overlap in terms of how we work on, kind of synergizing our competencies and more importantly, dialogue with the sector. So I think I also put this to give them that we need to also create more forums where there are dialogues in terms of genuine dialogues in terms of how is it that we actually bring in value of experience and insight from industry and academics and myself.